This episode of The Blockchain Show is brought to you by AXEL, IPFS. AXEL is returning trust to the internet by returning control of data to the user. For more information about AXEL, visit www.axel.network/IPFS. The Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hello, blockchain fans. Welcome back to The Blockchain Show. This is episode 140. We're interviewing Daniel Lindsay, the CFO at AXEL. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And Steve, you're back. Welcome back, Steve. It's been a while.
I am back. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
For sure. Our fans missed you.
Maybe.
Daniel, if you wouldn't mind briefly introducing yourself to our audience and maybe giving us a little bit of your background and how you came to be at AXEL.
Sure. Like you mentioned, I am the CFO here at AXEL. Actually, not from Las Vegas originally. Just moved back here a year ago, but I went to UNLV for grad school, so not completely unfamiliar. My background is in traditional finance and banking, so lending, treasury management, wealth management, those sorts of things. What brought me to AXEL was actually when I moved back to Las Vegas. I was looking for something new and a challenge, and I've always been interested in blockchain technology. So when I saw that they had an opening, I immediately applied, kind of expressed my passion, and I think they appreciated that, and I've been here ever since.
Cool. So you said you're not originally from Vegas. Is anybody or no?
I've heard, actually, I'm from Michigan, which I've heard there's quite a few Michigan people that live in Vegas now.
Michigan transplant. So when did you first hear about blockchain and made you want to apply to AXEL? What was how long you been in this space?
Well, of course, the first time I heard about it was through Bitcoin, and just I'm sure it was during the crazy price surges that was going on. But upon further reading and the underlying technology, which is what really fascinated me, that's kind of what got me into this space. And again, before AXEL, I really didn't have a lot of experience in blockchain per se, but I've always been kind of a tech person and almost an electronic gadget nerd, if you will. The combination is just a really good fit.
And I see your background is also in finance, so you kind of have, the three different subdisciplines going for you. Being a techie, being in finance. Can you maybe expand a little bit on your switch from just initially just watching Bitcoin go up in price, and then how you went and studied the white paper and then kind of switched to not just being so price focused and being more technology focused?
Well, sure. And maybe I should add too, I actually came on board with AXEL as a kind of an analyst role. And of course, every business, no matter what industry that you're in, you always have those needs for an analyst to kind of crunch numbers and determine whether or not something is beneficial in the long run. So that's kind of one of the reasons that I also came on board, was it kind of tied the two together, my passion for blockchain. And then they also had a position that kind of fit my skill set. So that's kind of what brought me on board there. And again, I've actually been more focused on not necessarily price as I have the other aspects of the company.
Yeah, it's always hard to focus on non-price issues. It's such an elephant in the room. I know lately we had a huge drop in the markets. Do you give that much thought, or you just kind of go about doing the work that you're doing?
I can't say that it was too surprising, just because they had quite a quick surge there a few months ago from 4,000. If we're just kind of throwing Bitcoin out there. But obviously the market in general pretty much did the same thing. So I wouldn't say I was too surprised. It was going to happen probably eventually, whether it's a correction or maybe more of a permanent move. That will still have to be seen. But it does affect us, obviously, being in this space, but not a huge surprise.
There was one coin that there might have been more than one, but there was one that kind of stuck out at me that actually was increasing the price, and that was Stellar. And I guess it's because one of the financial firms is running a pilot to put securities on it. Do you follow that at all, or no?
I got to be honest, I do not follow Stellar a whole lot, but when you see a coin, or even if you're looking at the stock market, a stock that kind of moves in the opposite direction is definitely worth a deeper look.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which company it was doing that, but it's always interesting to try to see if there's a reason why one of all the cryptos is going up while everything else is crashing. Do you follow anything about like Wells Fargo? I guess is making their own coin.
Yeah, I've actually seen they are, and I don't know if it's a coin, but I saw Chase was developing their own blockchain, and I'm sure some type of token or coin will have to be tied to that as well. And it's kind of funny to see these large financial institutions come on board finally after they fought it for so long.
Yeah, they definitely talked a pretty big game while in the background we're secretly building.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a strategic. I don't, probably knew the whole time that they wanted to jump on board and was just trying to delay the movement maybe a little bit.
Yeah. How's the launch going on Probit and the listing and the price with AXEL?
Oh, the listing's been great. It actually is pretty fresh, only a few days ago. So still a little bit, in those early stages of a lot of excitement and things are kind of still settling in, but it went really well. We held our IEO last month, and, that obviously went well. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that or if maybe it's been talked about on a previous podcast. But, we sold out in 48 hours. So the next natural step was kind of to list on Probit. And that just happened 2 days ago. And as far as price goes, you kind of see that immediate listing jump where it surged to $1 and then kind of came back down and stabilized around the listing price, which is 20 cents. So it was really good to see that it stabilized around 20 cents because to me, that's kind of a real testament, to the actual value of the token, because now it's in the hands of many who can trade it on an open market, and now they're determining the price rather than us saying it's worth 20 cents. So it's kind of good to kind of confirm what we've always felt, that it has that intrinsic value.
You did a pretty good job of estimating what the post initial spike price was going to be.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, part of that might be because they feel that it's worth 20 cents, and also there's some things tied to that value. So I think it's a combination of factors that brought it back down to 20 cents, but very happy about that.
What are some of the things that ties it to 20 cents?
Some of the products and services that we're going to be rolling out, and the things that, we're going to be doing with the token, as far as product development and the different use cases of the token, which is, it's all in the white paper and on our website as far as the different visions that we have for the token. So there is a method to the madness when you determine the price of a token as far as, what are you going to tie it to? Obviously, we have some storage capabilities that we're going to be putting in place. The IPFS network is already out there. I don't know if you're familiar with the pin and share, but every pin, every file you pin, the amount that it costs of AXEL token actually is tied to how long are you pinning it, what file size, would you like it encrypted or not? So all that kind of comes back to the AXEL token, and then obviously a price for storage and for the length of time that it's up there.
I guess I'm not really familiar with pin and share. Kind of know a little bit of IPFS. It's a interplanetary file system. It's really a great project, a great technology where we're trying to recreate the internet and make it totally decentralized internet. It's funny. It's like the entire plot of season 4 of Silicon Valley, basically. But so with AXEL, you can kind of pin these files, and then you're paying for somebody to serve it up, or how does the pin and share work?
Yeah, so actually, one of the products that's already out there that you can use is our web wallet or IPFS kind of portal, if you will. You can go to go.axel.network if you don't have an account and sign up, and we actually go ahead and give you 2 AXEL tokens to use and kind of play around with on the network and see what IPFS is all about. As far as the pinning goes, simply is just you loading a file to the IPFS and deciding how long you would like it to stay up there. Once you load it, and again, like I said, it's dependent on file size and time, is how many AXEL it will actually need to create that transaction on the blockchain. But once it's up there, you can actually share it with others if you so choose, kind of with a link. So you can load pictures, movies, documents if you want, and all these documents and files are actually linked to our blockchain through the AXEL token. So that's kind of the beauty of the entire ecosystem.
Okay, so with the way IPFS works is it takes a hash of your document or file, and then that hash is used as your address to find it. Does AXEL do some sort of like a DNS with that, so it has a human readable name to it, or is your pinning just the actual not encrypted hashed address?
It's actually, so the great thing is our blockchain and our system, when you use that AXEL token to pin, it takes that hash and puts it in the blockchain, and it actually links it to the blockchain immutably. So it'll always be there that transaction took place. As far as the sharing goes, yeah, it's as simple as sharing a website link.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm just thinking that there might be some sort of like higher level functioning on top of the AXEL network where it's hard to kind of like, so you actually just have like a web link that has the, it says IPFS.com and then the hash of the document, and there's you don't do anything extra with that to kind of make it a little more human readable. It's just kind of like that's the link, that's what goes in the blockchain, and that's what people share. Or do people have like in their personality, they have like links that they're sharing? So it's kind of, I guess what I'm trying to, do you beautify the way these IPFS addresses look like? Because it's just a random string of characters. How does the user see that link?
The user, it will still be a link with, your typical link, for example, with a bunch of forward slashes and hyphens. You can actually edit the metadata that is in the file, which will then go into what is displayed. So that's actually a feature that we offer that I don't think has really been used with IPFS before. And the entire portal and the web wallet itself is obviously very user-friendly. You put your files into your, you load them up into your portal, and then you decide whether or not you want to share them and how long you want to share them. And it's all extremely easy to use. And if to use your word beautify, I think it's actually a very beautiful interface.
Cool. So you guys are using masternodes, like I guess Dash uses masternodes, and there's a few other coins that are using masternodes, which are kind of like a proof of stake system. Could you describe kind of what a masternode is and why you chose that method of proof of stake versus proof of work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so proof of work, if you've read about it or know anything about it, a lot of it is dependent on computing power, and these larger enterprises have come in and kind of exploited that, especially with Bitcoin, by setting up these giant, I guess, warehouses of mining apparatus, so they can kind of step in and almost have an unfair advantage when it comes to the proof of work consensus system. Proof of stake kind of evens the playing field a little bit. So instead of, it being determinant on your computing power, it's actually more determinant on how many AXEL tokens you have staked in your wallet. So for example, if I have 5,000 tokens staked in my wallet, and you have 5,000 tokens staked in your wallet, I'm going to earn as many rewards as you are. There's no other factors involved to where, I might have an unfair advantage. Now, if I want to earn a little more rewards, we actually have different tiers of masternodes. I can stake 50,000 tokens, but again, the person next to me who's got 50,000 tokens staked, we're going to earn the same amount of rewards over time. So it kind of evens the playing field just a little bit. And as far as what a masternode is, I'm sorry you did ask that first. Masternodes are basically they're servers that we have strategically placed around the world that we run, and then the people that set up masternodes on their own, depending on their location. For example, we have quite a few concentrated in London, just as far as masternode operators that have joined and participate in our network. But they live in that area and they set up a masternode, so therefore the masternode kind of pops up in that area because whatever server provider they're using is likely local. But what that does is you end up getting a large group of people all participating in this network and kind of helping to expand it. And they're from all around the world, which then puts master nodes in many different geographic locations, which just kind of expands the breadth of the network and makes it that much more powerful and that much more useful on a global scale.
And the first tier you said was what, 1,000? Is it AXEL tokens?
Yeah, so it's a tier 3 master node. It's 5,000 tokens that you stake in your wallet to be part of that whole proof of stake consensus algorithm, system that you're talking about.
And these are valued at 20 cents currently, give or take.
Yeah, currently, yes.
So about $1,000 to set up a Masternode.
Correct. And those are
For tier 3.
Yeah, tier 3s are, a lot of your enthusiasts who want to be a part of the project. And then the tier 2s, maybe more towards your enterprise clients that want to be a part of the project, but also could use a lot of the features that come along with the higher level tiers. So there's different levels for different, I guess, demographics, if you want, as far as,
Right.
What they're going to be using the network for. And
we had a company on a while ago that does I think it was called Neptune Dash or something, and they kind of do third-party reselling of Dash Masternodes. So if, the minimum is $1,000, somebody, hosts their Masternode and then rents out 10% of it for a little over $100 or something. They just make the fee.
Okay, well, I mean, what you're describing is actually something we've actually just partnered with a company called Tritium.
Oh, okay.
And they don't actually rent them out per se. What it is if you don't meet the collateral requirements of a tier 3, and you'd like to be part of the project and earn rewards, you can take, let's say, your 600 tokens to Tritium, and what they do is they'll pool it with others like you that don't have enough collateral, and they'll actually go ahead and host the Masternode for all the shared node users, and then they give you the rewards in proportion to the amount that you staked.
And does Tritium do that do a similar thing, pooling of people without the entire stake for any other coins, or just with you guys so far?
Oh no, they're a very large shared node service, so they have a ton of coins on their website. We are actually the first project to be welcomed into their Tritium Select program. So basically, for the last 6 months, they've been looking for a project that kind of stands out above the rest, as far as team, as far as, vision and the long-term goals. And they've been looking for 6 months, like I said. And we are actually the first one that they've asked to be a part of that program. So I'm very honored to actually be partnered with them and to be in that category, and the first one in that category.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. So seems like you've got a lot going on right now. What's in the pipeline for AXEL?
Well, I guess we just released our web wallet, and we are really excited about the capabilities of that, which I think we've already kind of touched on with the IPFS pinning and the sharing of files through that. We've got a lot of people who have actually signed up already, actually over 1,000, I believe, and they've pinned thousands of files, just kind of seeing how the IPFS works and the capabilities and the benefits of it. So right now, that's kind of the focus. But coming up, I mean, we've got a lot on our roadmap as far as products that we intend to come or release over the next few years. And a lot of them are going to be enterprise based, so larger scale, database as a service, those kinds of a thing that kind of integrate the benefits of the IPFS and the Masternode system on a much, much larger platform and scale so that these bigger companies can take advantage of it.
Use the term database as a service. Are these DLTs or blockchains, and you're just presenting it as a database as a service, or is it not a blockchain or not a DLT?
No, it will definitely incorporate the AXEL blockchain and the AXEL token. Again, the immutable link of the file and the transaction once you load it. All those will be factors that are incorporated into the products coming forward, enterprise or consumer.
I've kind of noticed in the larger space that blockchain or Bitcoin has kind of fallen out of fashion. There was a lot of hype for a little while. People may be moving away from using that as their in their marketing and their discussion. Is there anything going on with that, like at AXEL, where you're kind of saying like database as a service, or is it just kind of coincidental that you use database as a service?
I just threw that one out there because it's actually one of the closest things on our roadmap, and it's one that people can kind of relate to. So I threw that out there. We're going to be doing web hosting and other enterprise solutions as well. But I completely relate to what you're saying. I think a lot of hype was built around it, and a lot of people as far as technology companies tried to push it, even though they didn't really have a use case for it. Whereas, a company like AXEL that actually does, it's made it a little bit harder. But I think the hype was built and then it kind of died out. But I think it's also kind of picking back up again. And people are starting to see that it's not all a bunch of talk, and there are actual uses for this technology.
What would you say the percentages of talk in 2018 of companies was versus companies like AXEL that are actually doing something?
Oh, in 2018, how many were legitimate?
Yeah.
Maybe 10%. I don't know.
Yeah. It's what is it about this space that makes it so attractive to people that are, don't have the qualifications to do what they're doing, or generally scamming, or just really, really poorly executing? Is it because it's such a there's such a get rich quick mentality to it, or it's like there's no regulations behind it? All this and more.
Well, I think if you're talking about those that kind of know they don't know what they're doing but are still pursuing it, I would definitely say that money is the driving factor. Or maybe they're hoping that they're going to get into it and figure it out along the way, and then unfortunately that never happens. It could be one of those two things. But the thing about the technology is it also can be applied to so many industries, and I think that's what draws so many people in. Is that it really can revolutionize a lot of different things. It's just figuring out how to correctly apply it, and some people maybe just fall short a little bit at that stage.
Where do you think the first industries that's going to, where blockchain is going to really take over and change the landscape of that industry?
Data storage, of course.
Yeah.
Data storage and content distribution, because that's what AXEL does. That's definitely one of them. The other one, I really think it's going to change the financial industry. And I think that's probably why a lot of larger banks and corporations were hesitant to adopt it, because it kind of disrupts the way that they do things and the way that they know of doing things. And it also, being decentralized and almost a kind of trustless system takes a little bit of power away from them. So it's kind of finding that ground of how do they adopt it and make it work rather than fighting it.
You don't think the banking system is just going to win that battle?
If they're going to win it, it's going to be through some form of adoption. And so I don't know if that's really a win or just kind of a they have submitted.
Yeah. There's the technology is such a great technology that I don't think there's going to be an industry that is untouched by it. Certainly data storage is, and using IPFS and using the things that AXEL doing, certainly one of the first ones that's going to go down. We have a global economy, and data needs to be moved quite far, and so reducing latency and kind of connecting people, that's really what a big driver and benefit of this technology is, and obviously decentralized. All these things really play into the global economy and what the global economy needs. What's AXEL Quest? AXEL Quest is a promotion that we've held a few times, and we're actually in the process of creating another one. We've got a lot of great feedback from it, and it's just a way to engage our communities and maybe even hopefully pull a few people that might not be in the community yet, but kind of pique their interest. And it's just a promotion that kind of sets you out on with a riddle or some type of puzzle that you have to solve. And in doing so, you learn a little bit about the product or AXEL as a company, or let's say, for example, our new partnership with Tritium. And obviously the end goal is you're trying to solve this puzzle to earn AXEL tokens at the end. So it serves multi-purposes. It's a lot of fun, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback. So we're actually in the process of doing another one. Is there been any high profile sharers of the service, or can you kind of tell me a little bit about some feedback that you've gotten from some users, or they've used some other storage system and preferred AXEL much more? Is there any interesting stories about AXEL users who are storing documentations with you guys, or documents or videos or things like that?
Well, the IPFS, the pit and share is fairly new, so I don't have any crazy stories as far as that's concerned yet. The biggest feedback we've gotten from pretty much all users is just as far as the time to download once you've uploaded it's extremely fast. Kind of talking about what I touched on earlier, which was the reduced latency because of the way the master nodes are set up. It's a very good way to share files and kind of reduce the time it takes to load a web page or download a PDF or a picture, for example. So that's the biggest feedback we've gotten from users. No high-profile ones, unfortunately, or nothing extremely exciting in that realm. Yeah. But the feedback's been good.
You have to pay AXEL token to store the file, and then for a length of time. Does the longer you want to store a file for increase that price then?
Yeah, so it's actually not a full AXEL token, but you are correct. You pay in AXEL, and just like Bitcoin, it goes out to 8 decimals, so it could be 0.00001 AXEL. But yes, the size of the file plays into the factor, or as far as the price. The length of time plays into the price. And then we also offer encryption, which would also add a little bit of AXEL to the price, because all of these things, of course, take computing power and data storage, as far as, the more megabytes or gigabytes of files is going to take up once it's hosted on the IPFS. So you can actually see when you're going in to post a file, pin a file, you can actually get a preview of what that's going to cost. And if you add encryption, you'll see it, kind of change slightly. But again, we're talking about a very small fraction of an AXEL token, and we give you 2 for free. So if you want to go out and play with it, those 2 tokens will probably last you quite some time. You could have a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to try that. Let's say that, I have my IPS server running, and somebody shares a file with me, and now I have that file, and I'm running IPF server. Is AXEL is what they're using for IPS the same as mine, so that now that I have downloaded that file, I can continue to serve up that same file, and you guys just kind of guarantee the latency and that at least one person you will be sharing that file, or is there some sort of, if I'm sharing it after the contract is done, that it will somehow it'll go away.
Yeah, so the way it kind of works is if I share a file to you, and let's say you're located halfway across the world. Again, this kind of plays into the tiers and what they're capable of. But basically, that file then is going to go to a server closest to you. And that's what reduces the latency for you when you access that file, and anybody else in your region that accesses that file. As far as who's hosting it, that's going to determine on the type of master node they're running, whether or not that file is actually hosted on that server, or if it's, master node, or if it's actually part of the surrounding swarm, where it's kind of into tiny slivers, and then whoever's accessing that file is actually pulling from the swarm. And I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. So I guess I just kind of something clicked, and hopefully it's right. The master nodes are IPFS nodes as well.
Yeah. The long-term goal is, the different tiers will have their different functions. Some will be IPFS gateways. Some will be IPFS, hosting, or they'll be hosting the tier 2 master nodes will be hosting IPFS files. And then the tier 3s would actually be kind of the swarm, the supporting the IPFS system.
Okay, so tier 3 requires a lot less technical know-how to set up, I imagine, too. Whereas tier 2, you have to set up a IPFS master node as well. I'm sure it's all just a program that you guys have built for them, but just and then
we have scripts that we provide to master node holders, and of course, depending on what they're going to be using it for and what type of tier it is, the scripts are made maybe a little bit different. But right now, if you go to our GitHub page, you can actually see those scripts, and it's for kind of setting up a tier 3. So if you wanted to set up a tier 3, you can go out and get a VPS somewhere and use that script, and it's still fairly straightforward for someone with no technical know-how. But it definitely, in my opinion, being someone that is not that great with coding. I might go with a Tritium if I was setting up a node, but for those of our operators that pretty much know what they're doing, they've successfully used it many times.
Yeah. What's Tritium's cut of the? Do they have like a standard, 10% admin fee or 5% or something like that?
It's actually very reasonable, and it depends on what service you're using with them, because they do have the shared node service, and then they'll actually host an entire node for you if you'd want. The shared node service, I think, is around €4 a month. The cold node service is actually only like €1.79 a month, because really all they're doing is they're kind of, they're being that middleman between you and that VPS, so you don't have to deal with any of the maintenance. But after that, the rewards kick back to you, and it's a very cost-effective way to set up a Masternode.
Very cool, very cool. AXEL seems to have a lot of partnerships with different companies that are going on in this case, Tritium. What are some other partnerships that AXEL has that they're working on right now? They've got Probit, which we mentioned, but who else are you guys working with?
We've been working with a provider here actually locally who does KYC for when we were doing our pre-sale. We were partnered with them to handle all the KYC requirements so that they could purchase the tokens for a Masternode. We've got a few other in the pipeline, but they're not really worked out yet as far as enterprise solutions to different industries. So unfortunately, I can't really go into a whole lot of detail. So
it's just me and you talking.
Yeah.
Ethan, do you have any questions that you want to add or ask?
I was just kind of curious if you could expand on the rewards a little bit with Tritium, how that works.
With Tritium specifically? Okay. If you're doing a shared node, basically, and I'll just use 500 AXEL tokens as an example because the collateral for a tier 3 is 5,000. So if I take 500 AXEL tokens to Tritium and say, I want to join in on a shared node, I've just provided 10% of the collateral. And so I would then receive 10% of the rewards that were being generated by that master node, which of course will depend on how many master nodes are in the system at one time. Because, for example, right now we are in a very exciting stage as far as the early deployment of our master nodes. So our master node holders are actually earning quite a bit right now. So even with that 10% share, you'd probably be earning quite a lot. Whereas if we were fully deployed with our 5,000 master nodes across the globe, those rewards would still be attractive, but of course not nearly as attractive as they are now with 68 master nodes. So, but yeah, it's just proportional to the amount of collateral that you bring for the entire collateral. So if you brought one token, which I don't know if you can do, I think the minimum is €10, but they just give you your cut.
Cool, man. And I remember we were talking with Jeremy about the IEO and how in America, I don't think people could really participate. So what about now? Can folks listening in the US, are they able to purchase AXEL tokens?
Well, we, of course, are still, nothing's changed in that area. As far as going out and joining Probit, I believe, I'm not sure if they accept US residents, but, that's completely on their platform. If you were to go sign up on Probit, that's kind of through Probit. We were actually selling directly as far as the presale goes. So we obviously have to abide by all the laws and make sure we're not violating any SEC regulations, and kind of ties into our cabin partnership that I talked about earlier. But this is Probit as far as if you're a user on Probit's exchange. I'm not familiar of what countries that they exclude, if any.
Okay. Yeah, I think it might have been more to do with the pre-sale.
Yeah.
Right on.
Have you been following at all this Kik and Kin thing? I guess Kik is a messaging platform that kids, I guess, used for a while. I'm too old for Kik, barely young enough for Facebook.
If you're speaking about the kind of legal ramifications that they might be facing, I have seen a little bit of it.
Yeah. What's your opinion on what's going on there? Because I guess they're fighting their security designation.
Yeah, so I haven't read the details on whether or not I can't really make a opinion on whether or not they're justified. I do think fighting it is, if they feel, which I'm sure they do, that they are not a security. I think fighting it and having the means to fight the SEC, which I'm sure they have, I mean, it's going to take that maybe to kind of put a little bit of a balance into where, not everything is scrutinized so heavily. There are people that are following the rules. So as far as what Kick's doing, I think it may be beneficial to a lot of others that are doing things right, but maybe kind of scrutinized unfairly. So I'm still going to be following it closely. I don't know the details, but I think what they're doing is probably a good thing.
Very cool. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Am I missing anything? Is there anything else in the overall blockchain space that you want to talk about? Are there certain projects that you really like that you want to talk about a bit that aren't AXEL?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've been extremely busy here and haven't really had a lot of chance to be following things like the Lightning Network. So I apologize for that one.
It's a nightmare. It's a mess. It's a terrible thing. Well, I don't know. What do I mean, I happen to fall on the side of like the large blocks, I guess, and the whole. I don't think Bitcoin is any worth anything anymore. I think it's a pretty bad network that has kind of been taken over and hijacked, and now it's not really good for anything. But not a lot of people disagree with me, But
they laid the foundation for a lot of stuff, if anything. And, you got to imagine industries improve and change. And there's going to be a time where it kind of becomes outdated and irrelevant. And that's maybe the case for Bitcoin. So if not today, someday, it's possible.
Yeah. You think looking at the technology that day is already here is just letting the market come to terms with that fact, or you think it's still it's innovating on its own, or if it's just merely riding on its coattails of being a first mover advantage?
Yeah, if we're talking about actual underlying blockchain technology, from what I know, I'm pretty sure it's becoming a little outdated as far as people seeing it as a way to transact and the amount of people that have adopted it. That's pretty amazing in itself. And it's going to take, a few others have done it already. But as far as reaching that level is pretty impressive, and it may be hard to kind of move away from that. But I do think it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, it's such a great feat that Bitcoin accomplished by, starting with absolutely nothing, where every single person who, except for one person, Satoshi, thought that this was impossible. He shared it with, the cypherpunk server, and they all kind of laughed at it and said it was impossible. And then, got maybe 5 people to take him seriously, and now it's probably the 40th best currency in the world. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, and they say a lot of the greatest innovations and kind of stem that way. It starts with someone who everyone thinks is crazy.
Yeah. So from my perspective, to watch it not continue to innovate and to fall away from its lofty goal of providing, monetary financial inclusion for the world, to being a hodl and Lambo, I don't find that too thrilling.
Yeah, and maybe it has to do partially with the founder not really being a public figure and kind of being able to step in and direct the vision. I'm not sure if that plays a factor. Yeah,
there are a bunch of cryptocurrencies that do have founders and can kind of like steer the vision. Like with Linux or whatever, not a cryptocurrency. You have Linus, who is declared to what's his title again? I forget. It was supreme altruistic dictator or something like that.
I didn't hear that, but that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So you have Vitalik, which is kind of in a similar altruistic dictatorship of Ethereum. Although he takes a lot from his consultants, or not his consultants, but the other people he's working with. I don't know where I was going with this, but just to talk about, you were talking about how maybe Bitcoin's failing because there's not the creator leader is absent.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just the nature of this technology being that it is. If someone feels that something can be changed, and they kind of have free reign to do so, because a lot of it, it's open source, and you can kind of improve on it and kind of create your own vision. So you have all these. I don't know what you want to call them, spin-off visions, but that can also kind of maybe play a role that with all these spin-off projects. You're not really focusing in on, you don't have a group effort as much as you would. But it could be a multitude of factors.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just gonna do a real quick looking at relative recent news to see if you get. Is there anything that I'm missing? Because I think we got a pretty good show here. What do you think, Ethan? What do you think, Daniel?
Oh yeah, like I said, I was really glad you guys invited me to be here. I enjoyed myself and enjoyed kind of bouncing some opinions off each other. It's been a good experience.
Yeah, thanks. I had a pretty good time. We'll have to have Axel back again soon.
Oh, that would be great. Let us know, and I'm sure we'd be glad to be there.
Cool. Ethan, are you able to talk now or no?
Yeah. I've just been enjoying listening. It's been a good podcast so far, guys.
All right. Well, thanks again.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Bye.
This episode of The Blockchain Show is brought to you by AXEL. AXEL is committed to data privacy and protection. For more information about AXEL, visit www.axel.network/IPFS.